as well with Michael McKee, Bloomberg TV and Radio's international economics and policy correspondent. He's in our Bloomberg News DC bureau, and here with us in New York, Bloomberg News economics editor Molly Smith. Mike, let me start with you. This is an impossible task to synthesize these many pages just a few minutes after it crossed the Bloomberg. But what are your takeaways? I think back on the last Beige Book that we got, and I think that the broad indication I remember is how there's flat to declining consumer spending because for many households they were worried about the path of the economy, worried about these tariffs and the effects they were going to have going forward. Picking up on the headline Carol just read a moment ago, sounds like we're seeing more of the same here with this iteration.
Yeah, pretty much. You asked how consumers and companies are feeling. I think the word would be meh. Economic activity slowed, and we saw hiring basically flat, according to the Beige Book. Nobody's really going out and adding employees. There is some sign, according to the Beige Book, that companies are increasing the pace of layoffs, and some are adopting more technology, they say. I guess a word for AI. Prices rising a little bit because of tariffs, and there are concerns about spending, which is slowing. Consumers starting to pull back, with the exception of autos, which the Beige Book says was driven by people trying to buy electric vehicles before the end of the tax credit at the end of September. So right now, it looks like the economy is still moving ahead. But there's you get kind of a different picture, and I'll be interested in Molly's view on this, from this Beige Book and what it's saying, and the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now number for the third quarter, which is about 3.8%.
Molly, come on in.
I think what stood out to me here is just this continued observation of this bifurcated economy between high and low income consumers. And that's what the Beige Book noted here, is that higher income spenders were still going out buying luxury travel and accommodation, that those kinds of categories were still strong, but that lower and middle income households still seeking discounts and promotions in the face of rising costs. So this is like just a very much like something that we've been seeing for, it feels like, I mean, this is pretty much, to me, what has defied every recession call that we've had for like the last 2 years. It's that high income households are increasingly making up the share of overall consumer spending. Right now, it's, I think, just right about 50%.
Yeah, it's a big deal. You know, it's funny because I was thinking about LVMH came out, I think, with their results, and their shares surged, suggesting that maybe that slump in luxury demand is easing, because we have seen it in the space. Having said that, Molly, we're in this kind of void a little bit when it comes to government data, right? We are expecting, though, the CPI print, I think, later this month.
Supposed to be today, right?
Today. It was
supposed to.
Right.
Supposed to be.
But in the absence of that, I compiled for you all of the other private sector inflation pages out there. You're so welcome. There aren't that many, though, honestly, which is something that Powell had observed yesterday when he was speaking at the NABE conference, that unlike the job market, we have so many private sector alternatives there to see what's going on with labor demand, with hiring, with wage growth. Inflation, not so much. So there are a couple of companies that compile price growth throughout the U.S., but it really is biased toward the goods space. They don't do as good of a job looking at services inflation. There are a couple of companies that specialize in housing inflation in particular, but they don't really get the overall view. So if we're really looking at just what goods inflation seemed to do in September, you definitely did see some signs of tariff pass through in certain categories. But in general, a lot of these economists are saying that the expectation is still that inflation will eventually level off.